What happens after the adventure concludes? After the great battles are fought and the heroes return home? Frieren, Beyond Journey's End offers a fresh perspective by exploring this very question. Instead of focusing on a grand quest, it delves into the life of Frieren, an immortal elf mage, after the demise of her longtime human companions. Today I'm discussing the key elements that make this series a standout: its plot, setting, character dynamics, themes, pacing, action sequences, magic system, and the challenges posed by its villains and obstacles. Unlike most narratives that center around heroic quests, Frieren Beyond Journey's End starts where other stories conclude: the defeat of the Demon King and the return of the heroes. Our protagonist, Frieren, is an immortal who lived through these events but now faces a more profound challenge: coming to terms with the passage of time. The story begins with the death of Himmel, the beloved hero of the party. For Frieren, who experiences time differently from humans, Himmel's passing marks a turning point, prompting her to embark on a new journey. This journey, however, is not one of world-saving heroism, but one of reflection, rediscovery, and understanding the value of the relationships she once took for granted. Through her travels, Frieren revisits the places she once explored with her companions, confronting memories and emotions she has long ignored. The setting of Frieren is a traditional fantasy world, but what sets it apart is its treatment of time and change. Frieren moves through a landscape that bears the marks of both growth and decay, highlighting the relentless passage of time. Towns she once knew have changed or even disappeared, and the once familiar world feels alien. This world building serves as more than a mere backdrop. It reflects Frieren's internal journey. The constant transformation of the environment mirrors her slow realization of the fleeting nature of human life. The juxtaposition of Frieren's immortality with the ever-evolving world around her creates a poignant sense of nostalgia and loss, underscoring one of the series' core themes: transience. Frieren, the protagonist, is a powerful elven mage with centuries of experience. As an immortal, she experiences time differently than humans, which creates a sense of emotional distance between herself and the world around her. At the start of the series, Frieren is somewhat detached, indifferent to the human companions with whom she once traveled. However, Himmel's death forces her to reflect on the meaning of time and relationships, and this sets her on a path of emotional growth. Throughout the series, Frieren's development is subtle. Her journey is one of introspection, as she begins to grasp the significance of the fleeting human lives she once took for granted. Her quiet grief, guilt, and desire to understand her companions more deeply serve as the emotional undercurrent of the entire story. As she mentors Fern, Frieren slowly learns to balance her vast knowledge and power with compassion and empathy, revealing a more vulnerable side of herself. Though Himmel dies at the very beginning of the story, his presence looms large over Frieren's journey. As the charismatic leader of the hero party that defeated the Demon King, Himmel is remembered for his compassion, his bravery, and unwavering dedication to his companions. His death marks a turning point for Frieren, as it forces her to confront the emotional distance she maintained during their time together. Himmel symbolizes the fleeting nature of human life and the impact one person can have even after death. His memory serves as a constant reminder to Frieren of what she lost by not cherishing her human companions more deeply. As she retraces their steps, Himmel's legacy pushes Frieren to reflect on her past and forge stronger bonds with those still living. Heiter was another member of Frieren's former party, a priest who brought warmth and humanity to the group. He took in Fern as an orphan, ensuring she was cared for even after his death. Heiter's faith and kindness made him a stabilizing force during their adventures, although he had his vices, specifically drinking. His passing leaves an emotional void, particularly for Fern, who saw him as a father figure. Heiter's legacy continues through his actions, most notably his decision to entrust Fern to Frieren. Even in his absence, Heiter's influence on Frieren and Fern persists, reminding them both the importance of compassion and responsibility. Eisen, the dwarf warrior from Frieren's old party, embodies resilience, strength, and loyalty. Though he is mortal, dwarves in this world have longer lifespans than humans, allowing Eisen to retain a connection to Frieren after Himmel and Heiter have passed away. His wisdom and steadfast nature play a key role in Frieren's realization of the emotional weight carried by those left behind. Eisen also serves as Stark's former mentor, and his influence on Stark's development as a warrior is evident. As a bridge between the past and the present, Eisen represents the continuity of the journey, reminding Frieren that while life is fleeting, the bonds formed during it endure. Fern is Frieren's young human apprentice, and she serves as the emotional link between Frieren's past and future. Orphaned at a young age, Fern was taken in first by Heiter, then by Frieren, and raised to become a mage. She is practical, reserved, and highly disciplined, standing in stark contrast to Frieren's more aloof and detached demeanor. Fern represents the human experience of time and mortality in the series. While Frieren grapples with the notion of eternity, Fern's awareness of her own limited lifespan brings a sense of urgency to her actions. She views magic as a tool for survival and practical use, not as a means of emotional or philosophical exploration. However, as she travels with Frieren, Fern begins to understand that magic and life itself holds deeper, more personal meaning. Her relationship with Frieren is central to the narrative. Fern starts off as a dutiful student, but over time, their bond deepens into something resembling family. Fern's growth, both as a mage and a person, mirrors Frieren's emotional evolution, creating a dynamic where both characters learn from one another. Stark, a former apprentice to the warrior Eisen, joined Frieren and Fern as a major supporting character. At first, Stark is portrayed as a reluctant fighter, somewhat clumsy, lacking confidence, maybe a little cowardly. However, he carries a deep sense of loyalty and honor, traits that gradually emerge as he grows closer to Frieren and Fern. Stark's journey is largely one of self-discovery. Despite his initial hesitance, he proves to be a formidable warrior when the situation calls for it. His reluctance to embrace his strength stems from a fear of failure and a sense of inadequacy, especially when compared to legendary figures like his former master Eisen. However, through his interactions with Frieren and Fern, Stark begins to trust in his own abilities and begins to accept the responsibilities that come with his role as a protector. Stark provides a grounded human perspective within the group. While Fern and Frieren deal with magic and philosophical reflection on time, Stark's concerns are more immediate: survival, protection, and the bonds of friendship. His down-to-earth nature and growing courage complement the more introspective journey of the other characters, adding a sense of camaraderie and heart to the trio. During their journey, the trio travel to a village where they meet a priest named Sein. Despite being a talented priest, Sein has several vices, including a love for alcohol, cigarettes, gambling, and older women. He travels with Frieren's group for a time, but eventually leaves to search for a childhood friend who embarked on his own adventure years ago. Through Sein, we learn more about the religious aspects of the show and an alternate source of magic, which is godly or divine magic. This type of magic appears to be more rare, with a person being born with the talent more like a trait versus a skill that one can learn, like practicing magecraft. A person that can wield divine magic can dispel curses, heal others and themselves, and implement battle magic as well. Another interesting character the group meets on their journey is Kraft, an elven monk who is several thousand years old. During their trip to the north, Frieren, Fern, and Stark are caught in a blizzard and seek refuge in a cabin at the base of the Shure Mountains. It is here that they discover a lone Kraft struggling to stay warm. The four of them stay in the cabin for 6 months to ride out the storm before they part ways. During this time, we learn even more about religion in this world, as Kraft seems to be a rarity, which is an elf that believes in the gods. His views on faith and spirituality add another layer of dimension to this group, causing all three of them to alter their perception of the world, especially when all hope seems lost. The central theme of Frieren Beyond Journey's End is time, its passage, and its impact on both individuals and the world around them. Frieren's immortality, while granting her immense magical power and knowledge, creates an emotional distance from the humans she encounters. She moves through life almost as a spectator, but the story forces her to confront the consequences of living through centuries without forming lasting emotional bonds. The series also grapples with the theme of legacy. What do individuals leave behind when they are gone? For Frieren, the answer is not heroic deeds or grand battles, but the memories and connections formed with others. Her journey is one of rediscovery, of understanding the depth of the relationships she once overlooked and the emotional imprints left by those she loved. Through her mentorship of Fern, she begins to pass on that legacy, ensuring that even though time moves forward, the impact of those who have passed is never truly lost. The pacing of Frieren Beyond Journey's End is deliberate and contemplative, fitting the introspective nature of the story. Rather than rushing through high-stakes battles, the series takes its time to explore the quiet moments of reflection and emotional growth. The slower tempo allows the characters, especially Frieren, to process the passage of time and the weight of their decisions. However, when action sequences do occur, they are executed with precision and purpose. The action is not gratuitous, but is instead a means of character development. Frieren's combat style, for instance, reflects her experience and mastery of magic, while Fern's more urgent, practical approach reveals her need to make the most of her limited time. These sequences highlight the contrast between the characters and serve as moments of revelation and growth. The magic in Frieren is portrayed as practical, almost an understated force, deeply tied to memory and understanding. Frieren's mastery of magic is not shown in flashy displays of power, but in her ability to harness ancient knowledge and tap into the world around her. Her magic is a tool for reconnection, allowing her to revisit memories, unravel long-forgotten spells, and piece together the fragments of the past. Fern's use of magic, on the other hand, is more pragmatic. She views it as a means of survival, reflecting the urgency of her mortal life. The contrast between Frieren's ancient, contemplative magic and Fern's more practical approach highlights their differing relationships with time and experience. While Frieren may not be an action-packed series at its core, it still presents formidable external threats in the form of demons. These demons, remnants of a darker era, are not mere physical enemies. They symbolize the lingering evils of the past that the world is trying to leave behind. The demons in Frieren are characterized by their cold, calculated nature, lacking the empathy that defines humanity. Aura is one of the most formidable antagonists faced by Frieren and her companions. She's a demon of great cunning and cruelty, epitomizing the lingering threat of the demonic forces that once terrorized the world. Aura's calculating nature and lack of empathy make her a terrifying enemy, and her strategic mind presents a challenge that tests the resolve and strength of Frieren's group. Aura represents more than just a physical threat. She symbolizes the remnants of an old evil that humanity must continue to fight, even after great victories. Her presence forces Frieren to confront the moral implications of her power and her role in ensuring that the next generation is protected from the mistakes of the past. Lugner, another key antagonist, is a demon who embodies deception and manipulation. As his name suggests, Lugner's greatest strength comes from his ability to lie and twist the truth, making him a dangerous foe for Frieren and her companions. His battles with the group are not just physical, but psychological, as he uses his cunning to exploit their weaknesses and fears. Lugner's presence underscores the series' exploration of truth and deception, as the group must overcome not just his physical threats, but the internal doubt he sows within them. His defeat represents a triumph, not just over evil, but over the lies that can corrupt even the strongest of wills. Qual was another demon that Frieren faced, first with the hero Himmel's group, and later with Fern. The demon mage Qual developed an offensive magic spell to pierce through the defenses of his foes. It was the first of its kind, and its name, Zoltrak. During their initial encounter, Frieren, along with the hero's group, were unable to defeat Qual, and were instead forced to seal him away. Now, in present day, the seal has begun to deteriorate, and Frieren, along with Fern, returns to where Qual is sealed outside a small village. Frieren is confident in Fern's ability to protect herself and Frieren herself from this ancient, evil, demonic mage. And though Fern seems apprehensive, she steadies herself as Fern dispels the seal. During a brief exchange, we learned that magic has evolved significantly in the 80 or so years that Qual has been sealed. Humans' ingenuity allowed them to reverse engineer much of the demon's magic, including the ability to fly and Zoltrak, developing an effective defense for the piercing mana strike. By shaping one's mana into structured hexagons and interlocking them, a barrier can be created that can deflect Zoltrak, though this technique rapidly depletes one's mana. It is also discovered that Zoltrak, once feared as an attack that killed up to 80% of mages that confronted Qual, is now considered basic offensive magic, and Frieren and Fern are easily able to dispatch the demon. The series goes through lengths to highlight how differently characters view magic and its utility. Demons, for instance, value magic and their mana above all else, as it symbolizes their strength and superiority, even their social status among other demons. They will spend hundreds and hundreds of years honing their magical craft, perfecting it with great pride. So, when encountering beings that suppress their mana in order to conceal their true strength, they are often caught off guard because in their arrogance they could never imagine doing something so foolish. These conflicts force Frieren to confront not only physical threats but also the moral implications of her long life. As she faces these demons, she is obligated to protect the next generation and ensure the mistakes of the past are not repeated. Beyond these external enemies, the internal challenges faced by Frieren and her companions are equally significant. Frieren's emotional detachment, Fern's struggle with mortality, the overarching theme of living in a world that has moved on, create internal obstacles that are just as difficult to overcome as any demon. In Frieren, Beyond Journey's End, characters are the heart of the narrative. While Frieren herself is the emotional center of the story, her journey is enriched and shaped by the companions she encounters along the way. These characters embody different perspectives on life, time, and mortality, creating a rich tapestry of interactions that form the emotional core of the series. Towards the end of the season, several other mages enter the story, each representing different facets of magic, power, and morality. These characters bring new challenges and perspectives into Frieren's journey, forcing her and her companions to reconsider their understanding of magic and its role in the world. The fact that the show introduced this slew of new characters so late in the season for this final arc was frankly quite impressive, especially because they are presented in such a way that you become quickly enamored, attached, or weary of each character within the course of the episodes. During the first-class mage exam, Frieren is teamed with two third-class mages, Kane and Lavine. Kane is timid and can control water. She has a confrontational relationship with Lavine as they grew up together, and Lavine both belittled and supported her. Lavine has power over cold and can turn water into ice. She works well alongside Kane, and they grew close despite her negative attitude. Frieren is initially concerned about being teamed up with these two as they constantly fought like cats. But she is surprised and impressed seeing them work together so efficiently. Between their scraps and catfighting, Frieren is able to pass some wisdom and mentor these two young mages as well, and you get the sense that they've both learned quite a bit just in this short amount of time. A sadistic and violent mage who was previously disqualified from the second-class mage exam for murdering an exam proctor, Yubel has a twisted fascination with combat and derives pleasure from killing, making her a formidable and unsettling ally. Yubel specializes in cleaving magic, a unique and invisible form of magic that can cut through virtually any material or object as long as she can imagine it being cut. She also possesses another powerful and unique spell, making her a force to be reckoned with. By learning more about her allies or opponents, Yubel is able to emotionally sync her mana with that mage, thus allowing her to replicate that mage's unique spellcraft. This unique skill seems to suggest that Yubel may possess a sort of psychopathy, as psychopaths are not able to genuinely feel real emotion, but only mirror it. Land was one of Fern's teammates during the first-class mage exam, a mysterious and calculating individual who approaches life with a detached sense of caution. He is perpetually wary of others, preferring to keep them at arm's length, and has a tendency to prioritize his own safety above all else. This mindset is reflected in his unique magical abilities, which allow him to create perfect clones of himself. These clones are so convincing that they can even participate in the exam's activities, allowing him to remain safe in another location. Land and Yubel end up forming a strangely toxic duo as the season comes to an end. Denkin is an elderly, second-class Imperial mage with a mysterious past, and he has an affinity to sense the smallest amount of mana, and a powerful, unique spell that summons swords of light, which he hurls with great speed and accuracy. Denkin is characterized as a sensible mage that has survived the ruthless politics of the Imperial Mage Society. He has earned a reputation for being a formidable foe, but upon meeting him you realize that he is quite kind and level-headed. Denkin was paired with two second-class mages, Richter, who ran a magical store where he specialized in repairing broken staves. He also had control over the earth. And Laufen, who was a mage from a rural community in the mountains. She specialized in movement magic, allowing her to move at incredible speeds. Both of these mages differed greatly in a cultural sense and highlighted how magic is expressed in different cultural settings. Rebel is a second-class mage with a lot of live combat experience, who takes part in the exam to be a first-class mage. He is also captain of the Northern Magic Corps. The first impression you get of Warbel, he comes across as a bit dangerous and someone that you may not want to turn your back on. And while he is a fierce combatant, outside of the exam we see that he is also quite kind and laid back. Ciri is an enigmatic and ancient mage who holds unparalleled magical knowledge. Her introduction adds a sense of mysticism and depth to the magical system, as she represents the pinnacle of what a mage can achieve with centuries of study and mastery. Despite her vast knowledge, Ciri is not without flaws, and her interactions with Frieren reveal that even those who seem invincible are still vulnerable to time, loss, and change. Ciri serves as a mirror to Frieren. Being an immortal elf herself, she is a reflection of what Frieren might become if she continues on her path of solitude. Flom is a figure from Frieren's past, a mage who once played a pivotal role in shaping her understanding of magic. Though Flom is no longer alive, her influence on Frieren's journey is profound. As a heroic figure who believed in the deeper, more emotional aspects of magic, Flom's philosophy contrasts with Frieren's more practical and detached approach at the beginning of the series. Her memory serves as a guiding force, reminding Frieren of the importance of empathy, connection, and using magic not just for power, but for the betterment of others. Ironically, Frieren was Flom's apprentice, and Flom was Ciri's apprentice. The dynamic between Frieren, Stark, and Fern, as well as the other characters that come into the story, drives much of the emotional weight of the series. Each character represents a different perspective on life and time. Frieren's immortal detachment, Fern's human pragmatism, and Stark's reluctant bravery. Together, they form a unique team, each learning from one another as they confront both internal and external challenges. Their interactions also highlight one of the core themes of the series, the importance of relationships and legacy. Frieren, who once viewed her human companions as fleeting and inconsequential, comes to realize it is these very connections that give life meaning. Fern and Stark's reliance on Frieren and her eventual acceptance of her role as their protector and mentor symbolizes her growing understanding of the value of companionship and the legacies left behind by those who have passed on. In the end, Frieren Beyond Journey's End is a story about coming to terms with time, loss, and legacy. It subverts the traditional hero's journey by focusing on what happens after the adventure concludes, and asks profound questions about the nature of life, memory, and what we leave behind. As Frieren moves forward on her quest, she learns that the journey is not just about exploring the world, but about understanding the emotional ties that bind us to it, even if those we love are gone. What do you think? Is the real journey about letting go, or is it about holding on to the memories that matter most? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.